Designing for a better world starts at school. In a way, I was very happy because I do understand German. I just don't speak it very fluently. So I'm chicken, so I'm doing this in English. So I really believe that we can actually change the world and also maybe, affront this threat against our democracy by thinking very carefully why we have schools, what we do in these schools, and actually how the design of these schools can help us creating better learning environments. And I'm going to tell you how. So first, my name is Rosan Bosch. I'm actually from the Netherlands, and I'm a bit embarrassed about not speaking, fluently German, but it happens to be that I moved to Denmark. Actually, I moved to Spain, and then later on to Brussels, and then I moved to Denmark, and I still live there. And today I have a studio, a design studio, working with design, architecture, and art. And we work both in Denmark, we also work in Spain. We have a small studio there. We're actually closing down our office in Singapore, which is still there, because we have so much activity in Southern America, where we work a lot, especially in Mexico and Argentina. We do projects in the US, in Norway, Stockholm, Abu Dhabi, etc., etc. With other words, we will work all over the world. And this is really interesting, because what we do is design as a tool for change and development. That means that when we work with design, we don't focus actually on the product. The most important thing that what we do as designers, as artists, as architects, because I have a very multidisciplinary team, is not the objects, the environments we design, but is actually focused on the people. How do they behave? How do they move? How do they feel? So we use the design to actually impact the people, their behavior, their feelings. And that is because design has a huge impact. Our physical environment has a much bigger impact than we normally acknowledge on the way we feel, the way we communicate with each other, the way we function as a community, the way we behave. And changing behavior is one of the hardest things to do. You can decide to stop eating chocolate and start taking a run every morning. But a lot of people that have tried to change their behavior also know that after a while, it kind of bends back. Yeah? It's like the grass. You can fold it this way, but it bends back. Maybe it sticks, but it's a big effort. So how do we change our educational community all at once? Teachers, ministers of education, parents, children, the neighbor. Well, this is what we do with our design. So, and how do we do that? That's how I'm going to explain to you. First of all, we start questioning, and maybe that's my art background, I don't know, but we start saying, okay, we talk about schools. What are schools about? Are they about learning? That's actually a really good question to ask, because when you're an architect and you work with schools, most of the time, people don't talk with you about learning. They give you a shopping list. They say, we have 800 students, we want that many classrooms, we want to have a gym. We definitely want to have some nice science labs. We need an outdoor environment, we want a football, etc., etc., etc. It's like a shopping list. They don't talk about learning. Then when you start to ask about the schools, then they start to talk about the teachers, the way they organize it. Everything is more important than the learning, which is a mistake. Because architecture of schools hasn't changed, and I researched this, for the last 800 years, yes? And we still sort of, more or less, create environments that more or less reflect this setting, yes? And we say, this is a learning environment. But the truth is, it's one of the worst environments for learning. It's good to get a short brief, but after 20 minutes, your brain starts falling asleep. It will also today. So I'm going to do a big effort here to keep you through my talk, which is 30 minutes. And then, so after 20 minutes, your brain sort of blocks out. And you're not learning anything. You're just sort of present. And this quote from a research of MIT, where they actually tested their own students, and the university discovered that they were actually not learning anything because their brain activity, most of the time, was practically zero. The same when you're watching television. So my question is, why on earth do we continue putting children in spaces like that and call them learning environments, because they're not learning environments. They're stopping your brain from working environments. So, and this is such a pity, because our society needs brilliant, creative, emotionally and socially intelligent people to help our society develop and affront these huge challenges we have on climate, on political issues, on, disasters, and so on, so on, so on. And we do the opposite. We make our children brain dead. Yes? So, in school, when you have a child and you send your child to school, it's about learning. And learning is about fun, because learning is nice. And learning is based on our natural born curiosity. This is a basic human thing. We're all born extremely curious. A child of 2 years old is a machine of learning. Everything, their body, their senses, everything is only doing one thing, learning with the entire body and mind, yes? And that is fun. It gives you a kick. It's a great thing. It's positive, yes? But then we send children to school, and what do they learn? That learning equals having to do things you not necessarily are interested in or want to do. This obligation behind things, yes? It also learns you to be afraid. To be afraid not doing it good and well enough, and being kind of, socially outsider. And it also learns you especially to be bored. And boredom is the biggest cause to stress. Yes, meine Damen und Herren, boredom creates stress. I know that a lot of people say they get stressed of working a lot, and I'm not saying you can't get stressed of doing a lot of things, but not using your intellect, not developing yourself as a human being and your mind actually makes you extremely stressed. And this stress results in health issues, results in just simply not being happy, and also results in a kind of, vegetation state of not challenging yourself, which is everything but not learning. So, I'm always, spicing these things up with a little bit of research, because people always say like, yeah, you're saying that, but who tells me that what you're talking about is true? Yes? So I always need to kind of prove a little bit what I'm saying. Because there is a reason, one should say, why we haven't changed schools since 800 years, basically. Because, you can wonder what else in our society hasn't changed. The thing that has least changed is the architecture of our schools. And what should we do at school? At school, we should nourish our curiosity. It's there. How to, take advantage of our curiosity, how to manage it and control it in a very positive way. At school, we should learn how to concentrate, yes, deeply and focused. And that's different from you and me. We concentrate in different ways. Today, most young people have a multitude of digital, things surrounding them, on all the time. And they have to learn how to manage this. They also have to learn by themselves, not because somebody tells them to, that they're actually going to shut it down a moment because they want to do something else. And they can acknowledge their own need of their own brain when they need concentration, deep concentration. We also need to work together. Collaboration is key of all development. Global collaboration. Collaborating with somebody you don't speak the language or hardly on a very bad kind of Skype connection, and you actually have to do a job together, and it has to be good. And if he's not doing it well, you're not doing it well. Learn how to collaborate and take responsibility for actually everybody in your collaboration. And then at school we need to learn how to fail. How can you learn when not failing? Basic understanding of everything. I don't know if you're familiar with the growth mindset theory, that you're actually, by making children doing exams with the right answers, we're actually transforming their brain set into always, choosing a little easier way and not challenging themselves to the max. Because the truth is that if you learn and you're not afraid to fail, you will always try to reach out to a little bit higher, because you will feel satisfaction with your learning process, because you learn more, because you're challenging yourself. But if you get punished when you're trying to do the best you can, yes? And then you make a lot of mistakes, obviously, you know. So then you're slowly learning to kind of keep low and keep on a horizontal level and not try too hard, because you might make a mistake and you will be punished. So we need to learn how to fail. And then we need to know how to communicate. Extremely important. Everything is communication, and communication changes. And yes, digital society, internet, which is a problem also from a philosophical, political point of view, but we do need to communicate using this media with people all around the world. And this communication changes very fast. We're already now in our virtual reality. The next thing is that we can actually transmit emotions to each other, yes? And we are moving ahead faster and faster. So, and then there's this book. I put the front page on top of it. It's a Spanish book. I got it from Francisco Mora, which is a scientist, and I met him once because we were speaking at the same environment, and I will highly recommend it. He's connected to Stanford, and I'm going to translate it for you. It's about neuro architecture. Neuro architecture is the architecture that studies the impact of the physical environment on your brain from a neurological point of view. And he has specialized in neuroeducation, meaning the physical environment and the impact, the physical environment of learning environments and the impact on the brain. And on the front page of his book, it says, "Solo se puede aprender aquello que se ama." Translation: you can only learn what you like, or what you are passionate about, or what you are interested in. It's a bit difficult to translate. Meaning, you cannot learn something you're not interested in and you're not motivated about. Which I think is a very big point, because in our school today, 80% of the time, we force students, you know, to learn things when we decide it's the right moment. Not when they are interested in it or motivated, but when somebody else, for somewhere, I don't know, over there, tells them that now you have to be interested in this because now you have to learn it. And the truth is, it will go in, but it will also go out again very fast. When you truly learn, you have to be motivated. Motivation is key in all education. And here comes the great news. You can design motivating environments. And I'm going to show you some, because that's a great thing when you're a designer. When you're a designer, you are a master of seduction, because that's what design does. It's not because the goal is making nice things. For me, the goal is not making nice things. The goal for me is creating a better world, starting with schools. Yes? Designing schools, helping schools to develop themselves, helping schools to change their behavior, because it's so difficult to change your behavior. Therefore, schools need help. Yeah? And I can do that because I can create environments that indicate different behavior and are simply motivating. Like, for example, these girls, you can see, this is a school in Abu Dhabi, and they were interested, you know, they chose first, by their own free will, to go down to this cave and do a session here. And I think she's something doing with animals, and she's telling all the little boys over there what is the right thing to do. Anyway, so what can the physical environment do? It can motivate, it can stimulate, and it can provide this great third teacher environment. It can create this physical environment that can help children to learn how to learn. Not only helped by the adults around them, which are important, but also helped by the physical environment, where they themselves, in their own, you know, time and ease, can discover how they learn best. First of all, when you design schools the way we do, you have to think that three things are connected, interrelated. The design of the school, the physical environment, is related to the pedagogy, the methodology, the way you work with learning, and to the organization of the school. Together, if these three are, you know, working well together, you also create a culture within it in itself is also a part of the learning process. Now, this is really important because in a traditional process as an architect, you are not allowed at all to discuss pedagogy or organization. But the truth is that if you design a school that sort of would function in a very different way, and the school organization moves back into this and just does as they always did, they will tell you that your school is shit. Yeah? Because when I'm standing here with my group and I'm speaking to them, that group is really disturbing and we can hardly hear each other and we get crazy of all the noise in this open environment. Yes? Because they're behaving exactly the same as before. So, if you are changing your physical environment, it has to come with a change of your organization, how you use the environment and you organize your school, and it has to come with a change of the methods, the methodology you use. And we're going to talk about that. So, designing schools, I very fast discovered that I needed to, have a way of talking with the teachers and the school itself. We needed to be able to communicate. And we couldn't, because I was an architect, a designer, and I had my language and they had theirs. So actually, throughout the years, we have developed some tools of communication, which you can see. I'm going to explain them to you. They have some icons. There's 6 different principles, which we use to talk about learning, and we use to talk about the design of the environment, and we use to talk about the organization of the school. Now, we use some metaphors to cover them. And each of these icons, I will go through them, they cover a learning situation, they cover ways of communicating with each other, and they cover designs. The first one we call Mountaintop. Now there's one little detail I forgot to say with the earlier slide, that is that all these different learning situations should not be thought of as different separate spaces, necessarily. It are different learning situations which you experience throughout the day in different sequences, yes? You might be in a mountaintop for a long time, you might have short cave moments, the next day you're in watering hole all day, etc., etc. I'll explain. The first one is the mountaintop, yeah? The mountaintop situation is a learning situation where you actually get a short brief, like we're doing right now, the traditional one. The teacher shortly explaining something, or one student explaining something to the other one, meaning you have one-way, unidirectional communication. Yes? That's why the symbol shows, only going one way. There is no dialogue. No, I am actually giving something to you, and you are absorbing this. Now, this kind of situations, which can be with large groups of people, small groups of people, can also be just with 3 people, one talking to 2 other people, can be throughout the school in different ways. Here are some examples. This is a school in Stockholm. This is actually a very open kind of landscape. But this situation here, the teacher is explaining something to a group of kids, is separate. So this kind of mountaintop situations should provide for a focus surrounding this activity. Not necessarily meaning a space with a door you close, but the environment, the acoustics, the whole space should be creating this the opportunity of unidirectional communication, as you can see with the girls doing over there. Now the second one we call cave. Yeah? Cave, as the word says, is about, enclosed, is about focus, about concentration. As you can see in the symbol, it's about not communicating with anybody. It's about being focused in whatever activity you're doing with yourself. Yeah? So here are some examples, because the truth is that the physical environment to concentrate is very different. There are people that need to sit with their back to the room in order to kind of close everybody out and to be very focused. And other people, they sit in the corner of the room so they can overview everything, and then first there they feel safe and comfortable in order to focus. Some people need to be in a very silent environment, while others, they work best in a cafe, sitting there writing a whole novel, with all the life passing by, and they feel very accommodated in this environment. Some kids, a lot of them, by the way, they prefer to lay down, more or less, with their laptop on their legs, stretching out. Others want to sit on a chair at a table in a bit, this kind of squarey kind of situation, yeah? Some need lots of lights. Others need a small light focusing on the table, etc. So these situations, cave situations, actually, in the school, should be plenty. Differentiated, different types of caves. So children can find and try out, where do I need to be if I need to focus? And different types of focus. Sometimes using your hands, sometimes reading something, sometimes maybe you're producing something. The third one is called Kempfire. Now, campfire is, sitting around a campfire, talking together. It's a metaphor for teamwork, yeah? For being in a little group. But not just having group tables in a classroom. No, creating group situations that allow you to take responsibility for the group, yeah? For example, you can see this. This is actually, well, the photo doesn't show. It's a very organic table with different holes and different positions. So when you're sitting there as a little group, you can actually, as a child, you can decide that, okay, we need to cuddle a bit closer, so you can sit a bit closer, or you can take a little bit more distance, because you know that Jonas, he feels a bit more, comfortable when he has a little bit more space surrounding him. Another one is, for example, this little platform, which is in the window, which is a space inside the space. These girls, they sat down there because they needed to feel that they are a little bit separated from the rest of the environment to focus on the activity inside their group. Another example is up there. They're flexible tables. This is at the university in Copenhagen. And these girls, they kind of took the tables and collected them in this corner. So they made an act in order to create a spot for their environment. Doing something active to create an environment for your group is also a really good way of creating this campfire situation. So this is about, as the symbol shows, focus inside the group. You communicate with each other, but you kind of forget the world surrounding you, as when you're sitting at a campfire. The fourth principle is called watering hole. A watering hole, they are the places, it's a metaphor of where the animals come in the evening and, the lion exchanges information with the antelope, and after that they continue hunting each other, yeah? This is the place where where you gossip, where you talk together. It's informal information, yeah? It's the spot where you bump into each other, yeah? These are watering holes. Now, companies put watering holes in strategic spots because already in the 1980s, they discovered that they were the key to knowledge exchange throughout the organization, the company. So companies have always strategic watering spots. Most big companies have, because it enhances, knowledge exchange. Now, why do schools not think about this in a strategic way? Because a school is very much about knowledge exchange and about what I would call inspiration exchange. Because we talked about motivation earlier, and these are the perfect spots to show something that, tickles your motivation, your curiosity. Yeah. So watering holes are actually, for example, a high table in a corridor, passing through, or this is also a movement area. Or here, over here, with the big trees, you can see there are like high tables, and they're typically places that attract. They have a lot of identity because they call upon themselves. I'm the watering hole here. Let us meet over here. So this is a place where you put yourself, and when you're there, you should not be surprised to be interrupted, to be, and if that's a problem for you, you will have to go sit at a cave or somewhere else. A watering hole is, where you overhear the others speaking. You hear about the football match or the theater on Friday, and where maybe there's an exhibition with some interesting works of somebody else at school who has done something with, I don't know, and made a smart car or something, and you see the car and you think, oh, that's cool, I want that too. Now the next one, hands-on. Hands-on situations are not necessarily a spot. Actually, they go into all the other situations I already talked about. They're about learning, not only with your brain, listening or reading. They're about using your entire body and your hands especially, about developing thoughts and learning. Yes? Now this, for a designer, requires special attention. Because when you're a designer, you have to provide for water and stone and mud or, other things, so you can actually work with these materials in this open environment, so you can clean and you can collect things. You also have to provide for that you can actually find the materials and get inspired by them, so you see them, but they have their spot, stuff like that. So this is very much about creating a structure that allows for hands-on learning integrated in all the other facilities. Here are some examples. For example, on the Vitra school in Stockholm, which I will show entirely in a moment, you have this table, and it has these buckets in the table, then where you put materials. So they're kind of there on the table, so they invite you to start using them, maybe to collect your thoughts. Now the last one of the 6 principles is called movement. Movement is about movement. Is about speeding up shortly to activate your pulse. Yeah, so it's not about just using your pinky. No, it's about really moving. Now, why do we do that? We do that because it simply activates your brain. Sometimes you need it to get rid of all your energy to be able to focus afterwards. Sometimes you also do an activity that's directly connected to learning. There are different reasons, but they're extremely important to have movement integrated throughout the day. Yes, actually our experience with schools that work with that and have it like a kind of an open opportunity all the time, woven through the day, not like gymnastics on Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. No, continuously throughout the whole day. We have very good experiences with this, that a lot of children that normally would get a diagnosis of being difficult, yes, or moving too much, or hyperactivity, or light hyperactivity, they sort of disappear. Because they can get rid of their energy and then they can come back and they can learn how to manage this themselves for their own learning process, yes? Now, from a design point of view, this is actually quite difficult because a space with a lot of furniture tells you indirectly not to start running and jumping because you start behaving. You know, you see an object and you slow down. I mean, that's a natural thing for us to do when you behave and you learn how to behave, yes? Now, if you want children to suddenly jump around and dance, then you need an open space. But when there's nobody jumping around in this open space, these open spaces, they become like deserts. They become like big empty holes, and they're just standing there empty. And you know, you actually only want to sit a little bit in the border, but you don't really want to cross this big open space. So it takes a lot of care as an architect to plan these open spaces in such a way in a school environment that they don't become dead spaces, like deserts in the middle of everything. Here are some examples. Upstairs is a room in this Vitra school, which I will show you in a moment, which is, we call it the dancing hall, because it has this, soft covers which you can put aside. It's actually just in the middle of the school, a big room, which is sound isolated. So if you really need to scream, you can also just go in there, close the door and whatever. And it's not a gymnastic. They have gym, It's a room for movement where you can go and, play very loud music, jump around. Another one here, this is a school in Aarhus in Denmark, where we actually worked a lot with creating, augmenting the movement, the physical movement of all the students, and they track them from the university, the research project, and then connecting the inside with the outdoor. So you're very natural, go from the into to the outdoor and back and forth, and children are free to go out and in as they please. And the third example here, this is from Abu Dhabi in the Middle East, and here we have a school where all the corridors, all the connecting areas that kind of, the flow in the building are made as spaces for movement and are used as such. So these 6 principles, which actually were kind of developed from us from a design point of view, because we could see that design is related to behavior and also were related to different learning situations. Yes, these 6 principles for us actually provide the opportunity to create what we call 21st century skills, working with 21st century environments, because they're differentiated environments. And when you design with these, you design thinking, you start thinking from, what we call learning from within. So when we have a dialogue with a school, we start talking about what kind of activities they have and how do the children learn. And then from the learning process, we start creating a physical environment. Now, do not make any mistakes and don't think that we create big open schools without walls and they're just big open, shopping malls. No, they're not. We create differentiated learning environments, working with an augmented, augmented consciousness about the learning inside these physical environments, instead of structuring your school on the basis of a little bit altmodisch, old-fashioned organizational model, which a traditional school uses in order to create their architecture.